In today's video, we have an NHL trade rumor discussing a possible three-way deal involving Keith Yandle that apparently he rejected with his no-move clause. We also have some players that were fined due to actions in last night's game. We have an injury update and a game postponed due to COVID-related issues. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about. Before we jump into the Keith Yandle trade rumor and a three-way deal that apparently was rejected, let's look at some other news here, including some fines based on action that happened last night. Now, first up, Minnesota Wild defender Greg Pateryn was fined $5,000 for cross-checking against Anaheim Ducks forward Sonny Milano. Of course, Pateryn was just traded. We just posted the video on that here just a short time ago. He's now a member of the Colorado Avalanche, but still, that was an illegal cross-check that he was fined for. So $5,000 for him. Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks was also fined for basically like a high stick to the chest against Flames center Sean Monahan. His fine was $3,900. Technically, they called it slashing. Could have called it a high stick or whatever. Either way, it was careless use of the stick. Got Monahan up high, and he gets a fine as well. And Flyers forward Nicholas Aube-Kubel was also fined $4,600 for roughing against Sabres defenseman Rasmus Dahlin. So that all took place last night. The only other news on the waiver wire as well was yesterday had Calgary Flames newly signed defenseman Michael Stone, who signed a one-year deal on waivers, and he did clear, so he's now officially on the roster for Calgary. So he's got a one-year deal, $700K at the NHL level, kind of what he's been used to here the last couple of years, ever since he was bought out by Calgary and thus re-signed. And there was nobody new on waivers today, so that'll be the end of our waiver wire news for at least a little bit here. One quick injury update as well. Captain of the Arizona Coyotes, Oliver Ekman-Larsson. We did talk about a potential injury the other day. We do finally have some more updates. Looks like he's going to be out for about a month or so. Now, of course, he was taken out by Evander Kane, who basically he got a stick to the neck, went into the boards awkwardly, hit his head in the boards in the glass, but he also went awkwardly in his lower half of his body into the boards as well. And apparently that's more of the issue with the injury right now, not so much the upper body. They're calling it a lower body injury, and he's about a month away from returning. So I guess we will see, but either way, that's going to be a big blow to the Coyotes to be without their captain. So we'll see how quickly he can get back and how the team can do in his absence. Now, as I mentioned as well, we do have our first NHL game that's going to be being postponed due to COVID-related issues, and that's the game that was supposed to take place tonight between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Nashville Predators. The issue was on the Carolina Hurricanes side of things. They now have 5 players in COVID-19 protocols, which they already had Jordan Staal, and they had new players, Warren Foegele, Jordan Martinook, Jacob Slavin, and Tara Vinen are all in COVID protocols here as well. So that game that was supposed to take place this evening will be rescheduled. The Nashville Predators took an off day today. They are skating tomorrow. They will not be affected by this. But I guess depending on how things go with the Hurricanes the next day or two, we'll have to see if there's any additional disruptions to their schedule. Of course, we did have the COVID issue with the Dallas Stars, but that was before the season got underway. This is the first time since the season started that we've actually had to make changes to the schedule and actually seen a game postponed, but I'm sure it likely won't be the last. Let's just hope that it doesn't go too far and that the teams are not impacted too badly from this. Now, other than that, I really just want to talk about the Keith Yandle update here. There's been news coming out now through Nick Kypreos that apparently Yandle rejected a three-way deal, and that's kind of what spawned all of the talk about him being scratched and losing the Ironman streak and all of that stuff that kind of started up to the Panthers season here. So essentially what is being reported, and some of this came from Elliot Friedman too on his latest 31 Thoughts podcast, talking about the fact that even when last season ended, after Florida's season was over and they did their exit interviews, it was brought to management's attention and ownership that some players were kind of unhappy with the play of some of their teammates, and Yandle's name apparently was brought up enough about his poor defensive play. And it sounds like the Panthers kind of had it set out in their heads from the get-go. They kind of changed the culture a little bit, and they obviously wanted to be tougher to play against, for example, improve overall team defensive play. And it just seems like heading into the season, they were kind of bound and determined to maybe make an example of somebody who was not kind of getting great reviews from that side of the game ending last season. Of course, Bill Zito, the new GM, is kind of tasked with this, and it's kind of being reported that it's sort of coming down from ownership since Zito wasn't a part of those exit meetings. But basically, they want to make a deal here to move out Yandel's contract. At the end of the day, that's what's most important. Like I said, they're looking for a culture change, and I felt that moving Yandel was necessary. We even had comments from even one of the top players like Jonathan Huberdeau during the offseason as well, showing a little bit of frustration, being upset about the fact that the Panthers hadn't done better and that they can do better. He didn't really call out anybody in particular or anything like that, but it was kind of along the same lines of what we saw out of Jack Eichel, where he's just kind of just expressing his frustration and that, obviously he wants to win. He's there to win, feels like they have the talent to do it, and just been disappointed that they haven't been able to achieve better results, which is certainly fair to say. I know Florida fans, I'm sure, have been frustrated because the last few years, especially on paper, they look like they have a great team, but they just been, not able to get the job done when it matters most. They're either missing the playoffs or like just barely missing, or if they, they do get a chance, it's just can't take advantage. So obviously the Panthers are trying to make some changes. Now, Yandel was given a contract, well over $6 million with a full no-move clause. So that's, unfortunately for them, he has all the control in this matter. And say what you want about his defensive play, he's been a really solid offensive defenseman for a long time. I mean, just 2 years ago, he had career high over 60 points. Last year, he had 45 points in a shortened season, was on pace to go between 50 to 60 points yet again. So even though he might not be the strongest defensively, he's still very much able to contribute, especially on the power play. And obviously, like I said before, he's a very durable guy, a reliable guy. He's there game in, game out. Hasn't missed a game in, I think, over 10 years now. So it's kind of crazy that, they felt how they were going to go about this and to scratch him or threaten to scratch him to kind of convince him to play ball with them, if you will. So that's what's being reported now from Kypreos, is that essentially there was an offer on the table that they wanted him to accept, and he wouldn't. So that's why they went down this road here of threatening to scratch him and ruin his Ironman streak. But like I said, this dates back a while. Just a lot of it's just becoming more public lately. But the rumored trade, which we don't know all the moving pieces involved here, but it involves Yandel, the New York Islanders, and the Boston Bruins. Obviously, there would have been moving pieces between the Bruins and the Islanders, and obviously Florida receiving something else as well. Florida likely was retaining at least a little bit of salary in this deal, and it sounded like Yandel was going to end up playing for his hometown Boston Bruins. And what we're hearing from Kypreos is that deal was essentially turned down and rejected by Yandel himself. But I guess we'll never probably know for sure exactly how much truth there is to that. I would not be surprised if there were more serious trade talks going on. As I mentioned in a couple of the recent videos talking about the Yandel situation, I honestly think the Panthers have been having serious talks about this player. And, even though he personally had come out and said he has not been asked to waive, I'm not completely convinced of that at this point in time. I mean, obviously, the player and the team are trying to keep things internal. You saw the look on Yandel's face when he was announced in the opening lineup of the Florida Panthers in their first home game. You saw how he celebrated after he got in the lineup and scored. That was career goal number 100. Like Pierre LeBrun on Twitter said, it looked like, for him, it was like Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, and he scored the winning goal. And, you can understand after all that frustration, and probably a little bit of fear that he was going to lose his streak over something like this, that, at the end of the day, he was happy he kind of proved them wrong. So at this point, we don't have any reason to think he's not going to be in the lineup again anytime soon, that they're going to kind of bring this back. But essentially, we've had reports saying before that it was believed that he would waive to go to the Bruins or the Islanders or even the Florida or even the Philadelphia Flyers were the only teams I've heard of so far. But I honestly think that if that deal was there, more than anything, he probably was just playing hardball. Obviously, it's not a great time to move, uproot his family. I'm not sure that he would, be totally opposed to going to Boston. You would think that would be one of the teams he would be willing to go to, but hard to say for sure. But obviously, this crazy three-way deal, if there's truth to it from what Nick Kypreos was saying, could have been a big deal. I mean, obviously, the Bruins could get themselves another offensive defenseman to kind of replace some of what they lost in Torrey Krug. Obviously, the Islanders were getting something out of this as well. Not sure what Florida was getting back. More than anything, Florida's likely getting reduced, like the cap savings, and maybe something small in return. So we will see how this story develops, if it becomes an issue again. But the way Yandel was playing in that first game, and obviously they're playing again tonight, I would suspect that he'll be able to remain himself in the lineup and keep playing and keep this streak going. I just would hate to see it end because of them scratching him. If it ends, it should be, you know, due to a different reason, something else that can't be controlled, like an injury or something to that effect. But it would be nice to see him keep this going. If he does play every game this year, though, he won't be able to break the record this year. He won't be able to catch Doug Jarvis's record until at least into next season, assuming he can keep everything intact and carry it on that long. So let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think that Yandle is going to end up being traded? Do you think this has kind of died down now that he's been in the lineup and played well? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.